Hey friends, have you ever wondered how you can pay off your mortgage faster? Or maybe you like to help your kids get into the real estate market? Or better yet, retire with some passive income? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Sylvia Ho Mortgage Podcast. My name is Sylvia. I'm here to teach you how to achieve your goals simply by owning just one more property. Hey friends, it's Sylvia here. Welcome to the J.O.M.P podcast. Today we are joined by two different J.O.M.P clients. One is Drex and Gem and how they share their story on how they're handling the negative cash flow. With the rising rates and stuff, it's been more difficult, and we're talking about how they're handling the cash flow on their rental property and on their owner-occupied property, and how they manage their property. Their property is out of town, out in the Kingston area. So for them, it's like, how do they manage it when they live here in Toronto, they have a little one, and they have a property out in Kingston? We also hear from Mick, and Mick also purchased a property out of town, and he has a different way in managing his property that's out of town, as well as we're going to hear from him about handling negative cash flow. Drex and Gem are J.O.M.P clients. They purchased their first investment property a few years ago, and we're here to talk about what their experience is in regards to being a landlord, why did they want to go into J.O.M.P in the first place, and what their beliefs are in regards to building wealth. So Gem, Drex, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. So I'm just going to ask you the first question. Did you ever think that you would be a landlord?
Yeah, it was actually always part of our plan. Since early in our relationship, before we married, we had always planned on investing in real estate. You know, I remember many years ago saying, let's let somebody else pay the mortgage sort of thing. And we got delayed on it. We've been married 5 years now. Mm-hmm. We just invested in real estate this year, but we got delayed on it just because of the circumstances of life. We had a kid in the meantime. Things got busy. We felt the markets weren't good, but we kind of ended up trying to get away from just timing the market and just trying to get in as early as we can, stay in as long as you can, you know.
It's always been something I'd hoped for, but I didn't know how to get started, how to do it. So, and you've actually helped us tremendously with that. So thank you.
Okay. The biggest objection when it comes to owning their first property is like, it took me so much effort to get into my first property. You're telling me I can buy a second property? Like, is that actually possible? And a lot of people just don't know how to get started in this whole process, right? So that's awesome. You guys have a dream, realized it, made it happen, right? So now you own another property. Talk to me a little bit more about why did you want to get into real estate investing? You said that you've always wanted to. Why? What are the reasons?
Because the money is there.
Yeah, we understand that real estate is where the money is. And for average people like us, I mean, in our parents' time, you could work your job and pay your mortgage and pay down your mortgage and get it paid off, and then you're set, you know. But in our time, that doesn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. In our time, it takes a little bit more, and investing in real estate is really the only way that average people like us, I think, can build a significant wealth without, you know, spending 80-hour work weeks and so that sort of thing, you know.
Mm-hmm. I also remember when I was in college many years ago, a friend was telling me that she bought a condo, and then a year later she sold it for more than $100,000. So basically her equity jumped by that much. And basically at that time I was thinking, how can you get that much in a job? It's hard to get a job where you could get $100,000 in a year. This is back in 2001. So I could really see that money was in real estate. It's easy to make money with the property values going up.
Right. So what I'm hearing from you guys is that we've seen other people do it, right? Mm-hmm. You saw your friend do it, right? Our parents, it was cheaper to buy homes at that time, but right now it's more expensive. So it's tougher. So how does an average family here in the Toronto area pick up a second property? And what you're saying is that that's where the money is. That's what the wealthy people are doing. And therefore you're like, okay, how do we do that? And we're doing it right now.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah, making it happen was a bit of an obstacle, you know, it was a bit of a challenge. It's pretty scary sort of thing. It was a lot of work too in getting everything in place. It was a lot of work. We had this conversation many times, but over the course of the past year, I've said many times, if I'd known it was going to be this much work, I probably wouldn't have done it. I'm not saying that anymore now that things are all in place and the rent money's coming in now. You know, I'm over it. But Jem was encouraging me all along, no, we have to do this, we have to do this. And I was saying, oh my gosh, it's so much work, it's so much complexity and everything. But she's better at understanding these sorts of things than I am. And I'm better at other aspects of finances like saving.
Are you telling me that at first you're like, oh, it's a lot of work to pick up another property?
Mm-hmm.
It is a lot of work. There was a lot of paperwork involved. First of all, we had to refinance our mortgage, and then getting all that paperwork out and everything. You were a lot of help to us in that, because you were giving us lists of things that we needed to do all along the way. And all we really had to do is follow your list. That was a big help to us.
Mm-hmm. But even with the finding of the property, that was a bit of work, because every weekend we would go visit several properties at a time, just to find the right one at the right price. So it could be tiring.
Yeah, we started looking here in Toronto. We put a couple offers here in Toronto before we realized we've just been priced out of the market in Toronto. That's when we started looking in Kingston, my hometown. And we ended up doing probably about 4 or 5 offers in Kingston before one of them was accepted.
That's right.
So
yes. Yeah.
We're talking more than a half dozen offers in total. It was a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what you're saying is that when a client's interested in getting to the J.O.M.P program and becoming a landlord, there's a lot of initial work that goes into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Paperwork, finding the right property, putting in offers, spending the time doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now that you've gone through that, how do you feel?
Yeah, exactly. Now that the rent's coming in, we feel a lot better about it. And also, too, we understand that it's more work, but it's more work for a reason. Like, we could have taken that money and put it into mutual funds. Everybody does that for a reason. It's because it's easy. But people aren't investing in real estate for a reason, too. It's because it's work, but it's more work and it's more payoff as well than you're going to get out of a mutual fund. So
things don't come for free, right? You got to put in some effort, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So you live in the Toronto area. Your rental property is outside of the Toronto area. How are you managing this whole thing of being a landlord and having a property outside?
Yeah, so we've got property managers dealing with the day-to-day for us. And that was a good decision, especially since the property's out of town. I think it was a good decision. They charge us 7% of the rent, which is money well spent, really.
Mm-hmm. We
bought the place in, early August?
Mm-hmm.
And we had a renter in place by September. They had somebody in that quickly. So we can't complain about it. They kind of nickel and dime us for little things a lot here and there. So it's kind of annoying that way, but it really is money well spent to have the property managers take care of finding tenants and collecting rent and the legal paperwork, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. I'm happy that we got a property manager, because before we got into this, you tell me that, oh, I'm going to get a rental property, I'm going to get a property manager. I used to think that you spent so much on property managers, but now that we're into it, it's actually not that bad. It's
7% is money well spent.
That's right. Yeah.
For what they do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that 7%, and it's the cost of doing business, right? With if you don't do that, then you put your money into investments, and then you end up paying, the management fees on it, right? But right now you're paying 7%. They handle the tenant. You guys are pretty much hands off. It sounds like, right? And at the end, we don't want to be stressed out about our finances. So being able to give it to the professionals to do it, it's just like, okay, now I can live my own life.
That's right.
For sure. Now that things are in place, it's become a lot easier. And that only happened just recently. As of September, we kind of could sit back and relax and say, okay, everything's in place now. The rents are coming in. But it's a load off the mind for sure. Yeah.
Okay. When you say September, so it took 3 to 4 months, right? By the time we refinanced, got the new mortgage, found a new place.
We started that process in January, so it actually ended up taking about 9 months in total. And that was because our process of shopping for properties took so long. We started looking in Toronto, put in a couple offers in Toronto. We were dealing with several real estate agents in Toronto, and then we ended up going to Kingston. So we actually took an extended vacation in Kingston and to look for properties as well. It was a long process, probably longer than most people would experience, but that was because we
had to shift markets.
Yeah, we had to shift markets.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had to shift market. So what I'm hearing right now is, as landlords, you're like, hey, it was a lot of work at the beginning, but now it's worth it. It took us a little bit longer because we got priced out of the Toronto market. We ended up going to Kingston, and you picked Kingston because it's your hometown, Why did you pick Kingston? Why didn't you pick like Waterloo? Why didn't you pick somewhere else?
Yeah, it would have been just as intelligent to do that, I think, because prices have increased a lot in Kingston over the past year. However, we just had a lot more market knowledge of Kingston because I grew up there. So we knew which neighborhoods to avoid. We knew where the jobs are. We knew, we could look at an address and immediately think, okay, well, that place is going to rent for an appropriate amount, and look at other places and say, we need to stay away from this. So.
Excellent. You always invest in something that you know and that you understand. So that's what took you guys out to the Kingston area, and you already knew the area. So that's good. So I always recommend to my clients, do something that you understand. And if you don't understand that city, study it, right?
We're actually already kind of planning our next property, and our property in Kingston actually doesn't cash flow positively. We're putting extra money from our income into that property every month. And with the rising interest rates, it's become a bit worse as well. So we're happy with our decision overall, but we think that next time we could probably do a little bit better. And that's why we're trying to research other markets outside of Toronto, outside of Kingston, probably even outside of Ontario, because we're looking to hopefully have a property that will cash flow positively, that, we're taking in more from the rent than our expenses are total.
Okay. So right now you bought a property here in the Kingston area. It's not cash flowing. So you're bringing out your own money to be able to circumvent that cash flow. Now, I know that I was watching your Excel sheet in your video. We had put aside some emergency money for, rising costs, vacancies, and repairs and stuff. Have you guys started dipping into that at all yet?
We have actually.
A little bit. We did some repairs when we first bought the place. We got the basement windows done, a ceiling fan, some painting, that sort of thing. Apart from that, we want to leave that money, though, mainly for vacancies. And we do have some more repairs coming up as well. So we're trying not to dip into that money too much, just to cover the cost of the mortgage. So we are paying out a little bit from our monthly income into the property as well.
Okay. Now that you're bringing out money, the question people will ask is, do you regret doing it then?
I don't regret doing it. No, I mean, I think in the long run, it's going to save us a lot.
That's right. Yeah. And basically it's good that we've got our foot in the door, got our foot in the second property. So I think it'll be easier to.
Yeah, I think we can do better the next time around. We're looking at Kingston because that's a market I understand. But I think had we even looked out of Ontario the first time and done a bit more research, I think we probably could have done better the first time than we did. However, doing it for the first time, it was very much an experience builder for us, and we understand how to do it a lot better now. So I think probably our third property is going to go a lot more smoothly, I hope.
And then if you were going to give an advice to a new landlord, what would you tell them?
I'd say get a property manager.
Yeah, get a property manager, and also get in as early as you can. I think had we done this a year earlier, we'd probably be $100,000 richer by now.
That's true, yeah.
So get in as early as you can. Don't try to time the markets. Just get in and stay in as long as you can. I think same as stocks, same as bonds. Just get in as early as you can, stay in as long as you can.
Okay, beautiful. Now, one thing I wanted to go back to was your friend who bought the property and then a year later sold it for $100,000. And you said something very interesting. You said, where do you make $100,000 on top of your full-time job in 1 year? And is that where your idea of like getting into real estate started?
Kind of, I think so. It's probably one of those things.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Beautiful. So is there anything else that you wanted to add to tell people about the J.O.M.P program or to tell people about real estate investing? Like what is there anything else you want to add for the audience?
You've been a big help for us, but also too, it's not just the services that you do. You've got to kind of build a team to handle a lot of stuff for you. You're not going to know everything yourself. So getting a good real estate agent, like we were pretty picky with our real estate agent. We fired 2 real estate agents before we ended up finding one that we really liked working with. So you do have to be a little bit picky, a little bit assertive, but building a team of people that can help you. You've recommended some people to us for insurance and accounting and everything. So
great people.
Yeah. Good people. So you don't have to do it alone, I guess I'm saying,
That's right. Like you say, it's very important to have the right contacts, the right team to work with. Because I've had this idea of getting a second property for rental many, many years ago. But then all the mortgage brokers I've had in the past, they finance my property and then that's it. I never hear from them again. And, I would ask questions about how do I make this work and get another property? And they weren't really very helpful in that sense. So, I mean, you're a godsend because you've answered our questions. You've been very patient with us. You've built a personal relationship with us. So, that helped us a lot in
probably never would have happened without you, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. And also, even with the lawyer you recommended, Michelle Calling, she's amazing. I mean, I've dealt with other real estate lawyers in the past as well, and I never heard from them, never got any emails, calls, or anything. It was like their law clerks or secretaries doing all the work. But Michelle really talks to you and gets to know what you really need. And she's helped us with our rental property when we had an issue. She was hands-on. It was great.
Yeah, she's a very good professional.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely wonderful, guys. You guys have talked to us about your experience, your journey, your cash flow journey, that you want to continue investing in real estate, and the advice that you're going to give a future landlord in regards to, know your area, do your research, use a property manager. I really, really appreciate this. My listeners will learn so much from your experience. So thank you very, very, very much. So friends, we just heard from Drex and Gem, and their recommendation is to, use a property manager because it makes life a lot easier. Their second recommendation is to start early, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not about timing the market. It's getting time in the market and owning that investment property. And right now, guys, they're thinking about their third property. How exciting is that? Okay, so we just heard from Gem and Drex and how they manage their properties. Their first property, their J.O.M.P property that they bought, was out of town, right? And they hired a property manager. Right now, we're going to hear from Mick. Mick and his wife decided to get into the J.O.M.P program and buy a rental property. And they also ended up buying a property out of town. Thank you very much, Mick, for coming on to the J.O.M.P podcast.
You're welcome. Nice to see you.
So just a little bit more about who Mick is. So Mick is a professional business owner. He owns a painting company. He actually painted my house, guys, and I absolutely love him and his team. So this is my plug for Tricolor Painting. You guys want to contact for a painter? You got to contact Mick. So Mick and his wife live here in the Toronto area. He's self-employed. He owns a painting company, and his wife works at the management level, a large firm. They also have 2 kids. Right. And one of them is going to be going to post-secondary soon. You have a teenager in your house.
Middle school, teenager as of last week. Yes. But grade 7. So middle school for 2 years. Yeah.
Grade 7. And then when will your grade 7 kid be going to post-secondary?
So 7 and 8 is in middle school. So 9. So a year and a half from now, he'll be grade 9.
Okay. So he'll be in grade 9. And then we go to university in grade 13 now. So maybe about 6 more years?
That's a plan.
For university. Sure, yeah. 6 more years. Okay. All right. So guys, Mick came originally to me when his mortgage came up for renewal, and he wanted to know his options. But when his mortgage came up for renewal, he wasn't quite ready for J.O.M.P yet. He wasn't quite ready to buy an investment property. But 18 months later, he decided that he was ready. So my first question to you is, Mick, why did you want to get into the J.O.M.P program?
Yeah, thanks, Sylvia. It's nice to look back now and be able to talk of it as in the past tense. When you said I wasn't ready, I think financially I was ready, but mentally I wasn't ready. Granted, I was in my late 30s, probably 40 at that point, and well established and positive feeling economically. Company and the country was going well. Why didn't I? Yeah, I think again back to psychology. My wife is probably less of a financial risk taker than I am. I'm a pure entrepreneur. So I guess maybe we felt between the two of us that we weren't brave enough. We weren't ready to pull the trigger. There's been many things in life. I wish I did a larger renovation when I did a medium-sized renovation 10 years ago. So maybe I didn't have that voice of reason guiding me or just the confidence to pull the trigger. I wish I had, is what I'm saying to you. I was ready physically and financially, but just not there emotionally.
Emotionally. Okay. So yeah, it is a mental game when you start changing your mindset in regards to, investing into more real estate, because at the end it is a large debt, right?
Sure. It's the biggest asset you'll ever buy, right?
So now that you are a landlord, did you ever think that you would be a landlord where you are today?
Yeah, I think so. Yes. Just, you don't know this, Sylvia might not even mention it. When I grew up, I remember my parents, and this is in 1980s in Ireland. My parents had an investment property, and I didn't dwell on it too much, but I always knew that at the back of my head. And my father was an entrepreneur, and I left corporate world and became an entrepreneur. So maybe I was reflecting back on my past. But no, let's not pretend I was 25 and I said my financial goal is to, own my own company and buy investment properties. That was not in my head at 25 or 30. But then in my 30s, I think it's about the numbers here. I soon realized with the Toronto housing market that what the word equity means, and that I was building a lot of equity in my house, which I was lucky to purchase as long ago as 16 years ago. So that started to wear on me, that there's an opportunity, a hidden opportunity there. And that just seed needed some time to grow.
Okay. So you're talking about, building the equity that's in your current owner-occupied home.
Yeah, for sure. My house has tripled in value. Everybody who bought their house, I don't know, more than 10 years ago has a large amount of equity sitting there. And equity, to simplify it, is the ability to get debt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the whole J.O.M.P program, guys, is all about pulling the equity that's in your current home to go buy another property. Today's focus is really about managing properties. Actually, I don't know if you answered the question. Why did you get into J.O.M.P?
Oh, to grow my wealth and take care of my kids in a crazy expensive market. Where are my kids going to be living in 15 years if they want to be in Toronto? And buying one property doesn't solve that problem, but I've taken a big step in the right direction. So quite simply, financial growth and security, they're high level goals, lofty goals, but that is why I don't, power trip that I'm a landlord. That's not of interest to me. This is a vehicle to allow me to increase my family's wealth.
So wealthy people know that real estate is a way to increase your net worth. And basically what you're doing is you're copying what the wealthy are doing. You're taking out the equity and going to buy another property.
Define wealthy. To some other people who can't purchase their first home, I'm wealthy. So yeah, it's all relative.
Fair enough. So today we're going to really focus on two things. We're going to focus on how you ended up buying a property out of town and how you manage that property. And then how are you dealing with today's, cash flow strap? People are getting our cash flow strap because the rates have increased quite a bit. So let's talk about the first one where did you ever look at properties here in the Toronto area, and how did you end up in Peterborough?
100% I did. It makes more sense to have the property nearby because physically, that it's closer if you want to check on it, or if there's issues, it's closer. Or if a child is to live in said property in the future, pretty sure my kids won't be living where I purchased. But I guess the decisions that helped me through that process, my brother-in-law's in real estate. Of course, we wanted him to find us. We were looking at a condo. We wanted to spend $500,000 maximum for a property. And in Toronto, that does not get you a house. So straight away it was, okay, Toronto condo. What will it look like? $500,000. But of course, the monthly management fees really started to mean no positive cash flow. I would borrow an amount of money, the mortgage would equal the rent, and then I would get hit by those monthly management fees. So if I did that every month, I would have to be putting in money from my own private wealth. It would not be paying for itself. It was not cash flow positive. It would have been cash flow negative. And that scared me because we're a busy family with 2 young kids. I don't have a ton of cash lying around. So I wanted something that would pay for itself. And that's just a beautiful thought. My investment property is paying for itself. So therefore, no condo in Toronto, needed to move outside the Toronto market. All of a sudden, you can buy a house for $500,000 in the Kitcheners, the Hamiltons, and in my case, Peterborough. So my brother-in-law got no business from me, but he referred me to an agent in Peterborough, and that is who I started working with. And we went through the process and purchased a house. Oh my God, what was my date on that? Well over about 18 months ago. Yeah. Okay. Summer 2020, which was after COVID hit. But I saw that as an opportunity. I thought the housing market might soften a bit because people would be scared to purchase or worried about the economy. So I purchased in a volatile time.
Okay. And then so you ended up in Peterborough. Why Peterborough? Like, why not another city?
To me, Guelph, London, Hamilton, Peterborough, they're all the same. They're not near my home. And this is an investment property. I'm never going to live there. My kids are never going to live there. It's a deed. It's a piece of property. It's a financial transaction. It didn't matter to me where it was. Was I going to start dealing with 6 agents in 6 different cities? No, that would have been a nightmare. So I know Peterborough. I go north a lot during the summer, pass by it a little bit, have a friend who's up there. But even if I didn't, there's no reason not to. If my agent said Guelph, I would have purchased in Guelph. It's just a financial transaction.
Okay. So you ended out in Peterborough. So tell me about, managing this property. You live here in Toronto and your property is out in Peterborough.
Yeah, so we're into our second year now. Obviously, leases are talked about in years. But for me, a goal for me was to find a property that had the ability to have a second unit. I wanted to double down. I wanted 2 sets of rent rather than 1. I could have found a house that had a basement apartment ready to go. There wasn't a lot of those, and I'm not afraid to work with contractors, and that's what we did. So we bought a house that had a good, solid, deep basement, and we dropped $100,000 into it in order to build a nice 2-bedroom separate unit. So now I have a main floor and a basement unit. And that was, I thought, smarter than just buying a house and just renting it to 2 or 3 people.
Well, that's very interesting. So you specifically, in your mind, you went from a condo with condo fees. You're like, forget it. I'm not doing that. It's not cash flow positive, to outside of the city, to buying a house that is cheaper in price point, right? But you're buying a house instead of a condo now. Your thinking went to, I have to have a basement apartment so I can have 2 incomes coming in.
For sure. I mean, my basement income is not far off the main floor income. So I basically have double, and I'm not paying twice the price of the next house next door that only has the main floor. So I saw some real value in having 2 separate units with 2 separate rents coming in. Of course, there's extra debt there that the cost spent on the renovations has to be added to the debt of the home. So yes, more debt, but again, more revenue from it.
Right. So now that we're talking about numbers, so you bought this place for how much?
About $520,000.
$520,000.
Yep.
Amazing. So $520,000, you put in $100,000 for the basement. So that's $620,000.
Yep.
And how much rent are you getting?
I include utilities because even though we did the renovations, it would have been really pricey to separate everything. So okay. I'm including utilities at $2,500 for the main floor and $2,000 for the basement. That's $4,500. Bills are around $500. So I'm clearing $4,000 per month in rent. Before, of course, in 2020, interest rates were super low, which was kind of encouraging everybody to maybe go buy an investment property. At that point, I had over $1,000 a month in profit, if you want to call it, in positive cash flow. My rent was more than my debt repayments. Obviously, we've had, what is it, Sylvia, 4% rate increase in the last 6-9 months. So that's a very real thing. And that definitely has been affecting me. I've gone from about just over 1,000, maybe 1,100 positive cash flow. Right now, I'm breaking even. So if interest rates increase a little bit more, I will actually be dipping into personal finances to facilitate that. And I need to do that. Obviously, the mortgages have to be paid and I can't change somebody's rent in the middle of a lease. So yeah, interest rates are very real. Some people in my position might be scared, but I know they're not going to double to 8%. That's not realistic. I know there's maybe a couple more rises coming this year, and then I hope it will stagnate, if not reduce again. So I feel lucky. If I hadn't put that basement apartment in, my repayments would be over and I'd be cash negative right now. And every month I'd be paying a certain amount to pay the mortgage. So currently I'm neutral, which makes me happy. And I can still say the magic words, this house is paying for itself.
Okay, beautiful. So we heard earlier from Gem and Drex, they are in negative cash flow position and they are bringing out their own savings. There is a strategy, which is a J.O.M.P 2.0 strategy, which is called cash damming. Okay. And so if any clients are in a negative cash flow position, there is another strategy that we can pull out of the hat to use. All right. So I just wanted to put that in there. Now, so you're managing your negative cash flow with a basement apartment that you were just so happened just to put in, and then you were at positive and now you're at a neutral.
Yeah.
Do you regret buying an investment property?
No, not at all. Somebody who's more risk averse, scared of risks, might be like, oh my God, you're on the verge of getting yourself in trouble and paying. I would just zoom out and realize this is not a 3-year strategy or a 5 or a 10. This is, I don't have a number, 25, 30-year plan. When the mortgage is paid, I know that asset will have appreciated hugely. And I don't expect interest rates to stay high. So I will go back to cash positive soon. And then I will be back feeling really good about it for the long term. It would be crazy to sell right now. I don't even think it's increased that much because I bought in a little bit of a peak, even though it was COVID, people started spending. No, you could not convince me to sell that house right now. And even if interest rates went up 2-3% and I had to put in hundreds per month, I'd be talking to you about that technique and we would be doing it. And yes, times are tough when interest rates increase. Nobody can escape that. So it's just a fact of life. So no, I'm not even nearly thinking about selling.
So
Quite the opposite, actually. I'm thinking, when will I have equity in this new house and how much debt can I handle to move forward and purchase another property?
Oh, that is very, very interesting. Okay, so let's touch upon 2 points right there. So you just said buy another one. So let's talk about cash flow, right? So you just said that no, you would not sell even because you are cash flow neutral, but you can understand how someone would want to sell just because they're just stressed out about it, right?
Yeah, mentally, but I don't think that's the best financial decision. But if they're struggling to put in those few $100 a month to pay the mortgage, then they might go, what else can I do here? And only as a last resort, if I was in that situation, would I sell? If I sell, I feel like I'm walking away and my whole couple of years and all that mental effort put into this idea would be flatlined, would all be for nothing.
Exactly. So how I approach it is I talk to individuals that, that mortgage payment that you're making, a portion of that is your principal. Mm-hmm. It's really you paying yourself back. So when someone has to bring a couple of $100 or say $500, it's really you putting money back into your own retirement saving, putting money back into your own savings account.
Sure. Yeah. The paying for itself almost might apply soon, and I'll be okay with that.
Yeah, exactly. So I love your thinking that you're like, oh, you know what? I can't wait till the equity grows again and buying a second property. You want more than one property. What's your thinking behind that?
For sure. Well, and in the short term, turmoil in the economy equals opportunities. If everything's rosy and everybody's making lots of money, house prices are going to continue to go insane. And they have been. And I'm used to it. It's not insane. It is strong growth is what it's called. I see that's going to slow down a little bit. So if you start looking at property prices over the last 5 years and this year and next year, there's going to be a correction in the curve. I'm not saying house prices are going to drop. The increases are going to slow. Prices will slow down equals good time to buy a house. Other people scared. Interest rates are increasing. Oh, I'm not sure. Oh, COVID's finished my job. I'm not sure. All these concerns, those people will not be jumping into the market. So they won't be overheating the market. So I think there's opportunities to be purchasing this year. I don't know if I'm financially ready for it this year, but if I was, I wouldn't be scared of interest rates. I'd be doing the J.O.M.P program tomorrow for my first property.
Warren Buffett goes, when people are greedy, that's when you should be scared. But when people are scared, that's when there's opportunity.
Yes.
Right now,
it's not a magic wand. Interest rates are on the way up. So yes, house prices are slowing, but interest rates will make financing more expensive. So someone might say it might come out in the wash. The increase in one might be negated by the other. But all of this doesn't mean don't continue moving forward buying properties.
Now that we've been talking about, the property that you bought, now you want to managing. So what happens when a tenant calls you? What do you do?
Yeah, sure. So I have not found the need to use a management company. I'm in my second year. So maybe give you an example of my first year. I had 4 adults on the main floor while the basement was being worked on. Those 4 adults, 2 phone calls during the year. One was a washing machine stopped and the other was a kitchen tap faucet was loose and needed replacing. So I had to reach out to 2 tradespeople and I got those details from my agent. The agent who helps buy you a house is someone who's well connected in that area. I reached out to her and asked for 2 phone numbers. I got them. I reached both first time. I didn't have to Google plumber or Google washing machine repair person. Both of them did their visits without me involved. Hey, I need you to go check it out. Owner says X, Y, and Z. They'll be there. Please communicate. Here's their phone number. They both did their calls, solved the problems, and I paid the bills. No problem. That's it. It's a very simple story for me. I have had no issues. Do I go there? No. I've been there once in 18 months since I purchased the property, and that was at the end of the first year lease. So during the lease, I didn't need to go there once. I was just thinking other practicalities, like things that people need to think about. I'm paying someone to do the garden and the leaves. My tenants, 2 males, are totally happy to do the snow shoveling, so I didn't have to do that. But that's maybe something that somebody might think about. I have to think about landscaping, and I might need to think about snow. but those are the only people that you might need to surround yourself with.
Okay. So it sounds like how you manage your properties is you have a group, you have a professional network that you can reach out to. For example, your agent.
Yes.
Say, hey, I need this. This is what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I mean, if I didn't have that, I would probably just be brave enough to Google plumbers in Peterborough, and I would ring 3 of them and have 3 short conversations and have an instinct on who I trust more to go and do the call. That's what I would do if I didn't have, that trusted source.
Yeah, exactly. So you're very similar to me, Mick, in how you manage your own properties. I manage my properties as well, right? And then I've been doing this for 20 years. And for me, it's all about surrounding yourself with those professionals on speed dial. Your plumber on speed dial, your roofer, your window person, a handyman, right? An appliance person. So, and it's just, and then if you don't have that database, it's like you said, reach out, surf the internet, go to the Facebook groups. And then, ask people, right, that live in the area. So that's great. You're doing exactly what I'm doing. If you were to give one advice to a new landlord, what would you tell them?
Oh my. So they've already pulled the trigger on the purchase. So we're just talking about the nuts and bolts of being a landlord. I think the lease is important. I'm a glasses half full kind of optimistic person in life, and everything's rosy. You could just kind of need to think about the what ifs in your lease. I'm just thinking out loud here. I include utilities, like I said. We now have into our second year. So I've got 2 sets of renters. I monitored the numbers over the first year, so I kind of know what an average, hydro and gas and water rates are. Just recently, I was quite surprised only in the second month of the new arrangement where I both upstairs and downstairs full, my hydro bill spiked, and it was a bit scary. It was like 400 and change on its own. So I thought in the lease, well, I didn't think. I just said utilities included, period, all signed, goodbye. What I would like to have done is said, I believe utilities on average should cost this amount. That will be covered by me. Any excesses of that, I guess, need to be covered by you to put a disincentive into, I won't use the word waste, but using. I don't know what happened to have that large amount of usage, but it's a concern. And if that happens every month, it'll obviously tip me a couple of $100 in the wrong way. So my point is, in the lease, don't hope for the best. Try and be very specific. And I know, just as someone who's in business and deals with customers, if you come up with an agreement and you clarify X, Y, and Z, and they say, okay, this sounds reasonable, and they sign it, there's no surprises later on. And I think it would have been wise and fair of me to do that. So that's just an item. But if people are not including bills in their lease, which I believe most people don't, then what else? I guess vetting of tenants. Like, this is just when you're interviewing, all sorts of people came my way. I learned what ODSP is. I didn't know what that was. I think also in Toronto, it's a bit of a busy city, dual family incomes, everybody's working hard. I found that in my case, in Peterborough, I had a lot of random people with all sorts of everything going on and not many full-time jobs. So it was a little scary. Here I was researching ODSP, and I needed to learn about this. And am I allowed to ask you what, try and be appropriate and find out things without asking personal questions? So that was a bit of a navigation. And of course, then you come to the, well, these people are interested and we don't have many other candidates and it's available next month. And then you look in the mirror and go, do I pull the trigger here? Because if I don't, that's $2,500 next month missed. And then what if? So yeah, just due diligence, I guess. Meeting people in person. The first people were during COVID and we did Zoom calls. The second people, I insisted on being up there. I met like 8 sets of people in a 3-hour window because I wanted to see them face to face. That's just kind of the person I am. I wanted to. I'm not afraid of that. Just gives you an idea of who they are, where they're coming from, how they present themselves, and ultimately, are they going to be able to pay their rent? Because that's the simple concern with a landlord. I really don't care if there's a scratch in my floorboards. It's called wear and tear. It's called life. What I want is people are going to pay the bills. I'm not looking for the perfect family with the perfect children or perfect old lady. I just want people who will pay their bills.
Yeah. Mick, you sound like you're going down the exact same path that I went down. For our listeners, guys, ODSP are people who are on disability, like benefits, permanent disability, right? Benefits from the government. When I first started going in the landlord business, it was the same thing. I got a lot of individuals. It was tough because it was like, okay, what do I do, right? My property is going to be vacant as of March 1st. Do I, look at these applications or who do I pick? For me as a landlord, I picked my specific avatar. So my specific target client, right? And then I did not sway from that. And the times that I did sway from it, it was not a good decision.
Okay.
Right?
So did you find yourself ever saying, okay, I'm not ready for next month. We need to slow down. I need to interview more and I will wait for another month of rent?
It's actually funny that you're saying that because I have a unit that was available for February 1st.
Yeah.
I put it out on the market on January 23rd because the renovations just got finished. And then 2 days later, an application came in. And I was like, oh, when do they need it for? Oh, February 1st. And the first thing is a red flag came up for me.
Okay.
You need a place in 7 days.
Yeah.
Why did you leave this to the last minute? Mm-hmm. So my gut instinct was, no, I'm ready to have it vacant. I want to have the right tenant in there. So you have the correct thinking. And in the past, for me, it was all about, I had to meet everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I had to meet everybody. I had to get to know their personality, get to know them and see them and hear them. Right. So stuff like, oh, I didn't want smokers in there. Well, I could smell if they smoke or not. Yeah. Right. So just little things like that. And those are things that I'm doing. I'm not saying that this is the right way to do it. This is what's worked for me.
Sure.
Right. The whole thing about capping utilities, I totally agree with you. Mm-hmm. Your thinking is absolutely correct. I used to have a duplex where upstairs and downstairs, but I wanted to get 2 separate meters, but it was way too expensive.
Yeah.
To separate the meters. And then so I ended up paying the utilities, but I put a cap on it. Okay. I said, your cap is $500 per month. 60% upstairs, 40% downstairs. And if you guys go over it after a 1-year basis, then we're going to reconcile our account.
Okay. Yeah. I really wish, because that I can't tell, this problem just started.
So then my suggestion to you would be to tell them, look, your utilities bill, I budget $500.
Do I have any legal recourse to do that? I assumed I'd be wasting my time by trying to say it to them.
I think that you're an individual that would pick the right tenant, trust your instinct that these are individuals that are responsible, right? Yep. And that would be like, hey, oh, I'm sorry, this is what happened. Or, hey, we're starting to use baseboard heaters because it's a little bit cold in the basement. Oh, yep. Okay, let me get you a better baseboard heater. Let me get you an oil one instead of like an electric one, right? So do find out. That's in my opinion, like that's what I would do. Right.
Sure. I need to see if it's going to continue for a second month, because I had the conversation. We talked about the time of use rates, but it spiked so much that I'm just concerned. I don't know what's happening. So I need to see another month, and then there's no harm. But of course, I'm just concerned that they would say, well, thanks for your suggestion about changing the lease, but that's not legal and I won't do any of that.
It's not about changing the lease. It's just about coming to, I always like to assume that individuals, they don't mean ill. Right. So it's just finding the bottom line of it. Right.
Yeah.
So you manage your properties on your own. You have good professional network around you. And then you decided to buy out of town because Toronto just did not make sense to you. We talked about, increasing rates and how you handled it. You are prepared to put in your personal loan savings. Of course, you don't want to, but because you put in the basement apartment, you're exactly cash flow neutral right now.
Currently. Yep.
Yeah. And then you're also thinking, okay, how do I build? I'm waiting for the equity to build up on this property to go buy another property. Mm-hmm. So if you were to give one advice to your younger self about financial investing, what would that be?
Do it sooner. Pretty simple. I don't heavily regret it, but now that I'm sitting back going, yes, I have an investment property. And now I'm thinking, when can I get the next one? The logic there is, why didn't I start sooner? And then I'd be further along in this process. Yeah, don't be scared. Speak to the professionals. Sylvia's wonderful mortgage advice. It's people like Sylvia who nurtured me along the process, because I don't think people sitting at home on their couch can be all of a sudden going, oh yeah, we're financially viable. Let's do this plan. We can bring the enthusiasm and our set of circumstances, meaning I own this house, I bought it in this year, but we need input from someone like Sylvia to say, This is your equation. This is your spreadsheet. Look at the numbers. If this happens, this will happen. If this happens, this will happen. Be informed. And I think that would help anybody make a decision because it's all laid out in front of them. Yeah. So, yeah, do it sooner. I'm 45 now. I wish at this point I had 2 or 3 properties, and I was talking more about, okay, let's look at a retirement age. My wife, do you want to stop working? We're not there, but those are decisions that might have been different if we'd started sooner.
Okay. All right. So all of my Jump clients, they were like, why did we not do it sooner? It's the same. Yeah. It seems to be the same theme over and over again. When I ask this one question, what would you ask your younger self? And a lot of times people are like, well, I just didn't think I could be ready financially. I'm not ready financially. And that's why I never looked into it. But what I say to clients is you really don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Maybe the answer is that, well, you can't do it right now because you don't have enough equity or you don't have enough income, but at least you have an answer.
True. And as a business owner, if I'd looked at it 10 years ago and you went, no, you're not there, you need to get to this level, that would be a motivator to keep me focused on my business. And by focused, I mean, target this year should be more like this. I'm a classic entrepreneur. I roll from one year to another. And yes, I want growth, but I don't have a goal of, 26%. But maybe that would help people get focused. When there's a target, you focus on it.
Exactly. When you have a goal in mind, at least you head in that direction, right? Instead of just kind of wandering through the woods. But if you had, say, I need to get from A to B, okay, well, let's head in that direction.
And it feels empowering to have made decisions and be in the middle of a process that I instigated. Yes, you helped and encouraged, but my wife and I pulled the trigger. We did it, and it does feel empowering. Now we talk to friends, and if our closer friends will mention investment property, and there's envy there. There's, oh my God, good for you guys. Like, wow, kind of surprise. Whoa, you got an investment property? I thought everybody's struggling to pay their mortgage. No, not really, because there was $500,000 worth of equity sitting in my house doing nothing. That's a point. Obviously, we took on debt to buy this property, but my wife and I did not save up a cent to put into this property. It's all through financial maneuvering, through debt. So again, my kids didn't have things taken away from them. We didn't stop spending. We didn't stop vacations. We purchased this property without spending $1. I know that sounds crazy, but that's the fact that maybe some of your listeners don't know, Sylvia. Maybe they think it's going to require, like when you buy a house, 20% down. Yes, that 20%, it does need to go down, but it's coming from debt. It's not coming out of your account. So that's important for people to understand. I hadn't worked through the mechanism to know that was in front of me.
Great point, Mick. A lot of people are like, what? I have to save up. If I want to buy $500,000, I have to save up 20%. I have to save up $100,000. It's going to take me a while to save up $100,000. Okay, when I get there, and then I'll buy my investment property.
Yep.
But with the Jump program, we're actually specifically looking at, buying an investment property with no personal savings.
True. I mean, I think it's prudent to mention here, the security of my primary home is included in this equation. If the renters disappear and if I cannot rent that property and if I cannot pay my mortgage, the bank could come after my primary house. And in that situation, obviously, I would have to sell. But yes, it's not free money for nothing. Your debt is secured by your main primary home. But that's what using the equity means. You're saying, I'm lucky enough to have this wonderful asset. Let's use it to do other things.
Exactly. So it's all about the dead equity that's currently sitting in your home. Is there a risk to using your current house to pull out the equity, go buy investment property? Well, there is always risk. It's an investment. It's a business, right? So when I look at this, I look at this as a landlord business, right? As an investment business. So another option is, okay, if you decide not to, buy an investment property and leverage the equity in your home, or you decide to leverage the equity in your home, you could always pull that money out and give it to a financial planner. Right. Mm-hmm. And then with a financial planner, it's going to go up and down. You're still leveraging, right? But now my area of expertise is leveraging the money in real estate instead. Right. Yep,
absolutely. And you've had longer time in the market to see those gains. Right now, I don't want to know what that property's worth. I don't know if it's gone up 5% or down 5%. Neither figure is very exciting to me because it's short term. So I'm looking for the long-term capital gain. The property will pay for itself. And then I don't know, $500,000 house in 30 years, it's going to be closer to $1 million. Yes, that's not $1 million of today's dollars, but that is a large help to my kids to get into the Toronto market, perhaps.
Exactly. And it's funny that you're saying this, because that's exactly the J.O.M.P blueprint is you go from $500,000 in 15 years, it doubles in value, it goes to $1 million. When you buy it for $500,000, you pay it down after 15 years, it'll go down to $250,000. So $250,000. And then now 15 years later, you have a mortgage of $250,000 that your tenant has paid down. Your place is worth $1 million just over that 15-year period. In this example, that's $750,000.
Yep. Massive. We all work so hard, 40, 50 hours a week for whatever salary it is. Compare those two numbers, right? That could be 4, 5, 6 years worth of salaries. That's a lot of work in your office or in your business. And here it is generating itself for you.
Exactly. I really appreciate this time, Mick. Thank you so much for being on this podcast and answering these questions. No, I haven't done this before yet, but do you have a specific question for me? And it's okay if you say no, about how I manage my properties?
Not really, but I can imagine with multiple properties comes multiple phone calls, and then it could escalate a little bit. But in my mind, if it got to that situation, I would look at, I'd be interested to know the numbers on what a property management company, what would they charge me per year to be on the end of the phone to help my clients? That's all. I'm just curious what they would charge, because if the phone doesn't ring, do they still get paid, a month's rent? Do they get paid $2,000 for potentially making 1 or 2 phone calls? That's the equation that you need to study before wanting to talk to them.
Yeah, property managers will charge anywhere from, Gem and Drex was saying they were 7%. I've heard 10%. I've heard 15%. Okay. I've heard 1 month, and then after it's 10% every month for every rent check that they collect. Yep. So every property manager is different. You end up paying any kind of repair bills and stuff. That's just their management bill.
Interesting. Yeah, for me, it wasn't. Look, if the phone had rang 10 times and it was becoming stressful, maybe then. But, for that to happen, the house would have had to have been falling apart or them really heavy on wear and tear. Yeah. And again, you're asking me for advice to a new person going in, maybe go without for the first 6 months or year, see how much work is involved, and then make an educated choice for year 2. You don't have to commit on day 1 and stick with them forever. You're in control.
Yeah, exactly. Or even do the opposite. Let them set it all up. Have it free flowing, and then pay them for the first year. And after the second year, okay, nothing has happened in the first year. Yeah. I'm just going to do this on my own.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Beautiful.
Other than that, questions for you in the future will be, when am I in a position to get more debt for an extra property?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we can talk more. It's all about building that equity. Once that equity has been built up, then we can pull again.
And actually, that's just in the J.O.M.P mentality. My wife and I are always talking here about renovation versus move. So it's not as simple for everybody as in, I live in this house and now I just want to own other houses. It's more complicated. Maybe we need to buy up so that you're the same person again to help with that equation. As of today, with my current financial situation, how much more money could I get if I wanted to change homes? So that might be a conversation I'll have with you soon.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Thank you very much to the audience for listening in. I hope you've learned a lot. I know I learned a lot for how Mick's journey has been as a landlord and how he looked at it. If you have any questions about the J.O.M.P program, please do connect with me. J.O.M.P is all about owning just one more property and building wealth outside your 9 to 5. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Bye now. We heard from Drex and Gem, and we heard from Mick. They talk about different ways in handling the negative cash flow, and they talk about different ways in taking care of their rental investment property that's outside of town. So at the end, guys, when it comes down to becoming a landlord, you have to know, the pros and cons of buying in the city and buying outside of the city. You have to understand the pros and cons between, using a property manager versus managing it yourself, and whether it's realistic or not. If you want to learn more on how to manage properties, how to buy your first rental property, do connect with me. I manage all my own properties myself for the last 20 years. I've been a landlord for the last 20 years. And it comes down to having a team. It comes down to having the right people around you and giving you the right advice. I'm here for anyone who wants to learn how to get into the J.O.M.P program, which is all about owning just one more property and building wealth outside of your 9 to 5. Thank you very much for listening, guys. Until the next podcast. Bye now. Hey, friends. Thanks so much for listening to the Sylvia Ho Mortgage Podcast. We'll catch you on the next episode. You want to learn more about the JUMP program? Please connect with me at sylviaho.ca. Love to hear from you. All it takes is 15 minutes for us to chat to see if this will work for you. Thanks, guys.